Hi, my name's Michael, and today I'm going to attempt a selection of mini reviews. And the topic of this group of 3 books is translated fiction, which is obviously going to be a topic of a lot of my reviews. I decided to do my mini reviews as a group of 3 because it was a suggestion from Let Go of My Books, which is a wonderful channel that everyone should check out, and I will link down below. And his suggestion was to do it in 3s because I could group them in themes, I could group them in genres, and I'll be able to put the name of the books easily in the thumbnail. And I thought this was a great idea because it allows me to talk about these books in more detail than a wrap-up, and it allows me to be a lot more versatile in my reviewing. And the idea of grouping them in themes or genres means that if you're interested, you can check out these reviews without having to worry about hearing about a book you're not interested in reading or not have no interest in whatsoever. First book I want to talk about is Perfect Days by Raphael Montes, and he is a Brazilian writer. This is translated by Alison, and this is a fantastic, disturbing book. Think of You by Carolyn Kapnis, and this is the type of book you're getting. It's about a man named Theo who falls in love with this woman called Clarice, and he begins to stalk her and he takes her captive. And what happens next I will not spoil because there is a lot of dark and twisted stuff that happens in this book, and it reminds me a lot about You, but it also reminds me of Jim Thompson, the way this author has written Theo and the darkness inside him. It's a lot like Jim Thompson. I'm thinking like Population 1280, which is a really disturbing book. I think this book really captures that disturbing nature of the character, and the development of the character is really interesting because you explore the lies and the manipulation and that darkness in him as he's trying to make this woman fall in love with him. He's trying to make this woman better, but he's going about it all wrong, and he's just digging himself in a hole and trying to get out of this situation. But I do not want to tell you what happens because I think the experience is what you want to experience. You need to feel those emotions and be part of this journey, and it keeps you up, it keeps you sucked in, and you're always wanting to know what happens next, and you're always on the edge of your seat, and you're always disturbed by his thought and how natural this darkness comes out of him. And I think it's fantastic and wonderful. And I haven't read many Brazilian novels, and I feel like my gap in reading is South America. So I have tried to pick up more books from South American authors, and this one was wonderful and chilling and so disturbing. And I had such a wonderful time with it. I'm adding this to my mini review because I don't want to give too much away. I want people to read it, but I definitely needed to gush about this book. The next book I want to talk about is Men the Living by Maylis de Kerangal, and this is translated by Jessica Moore. And this book is also known as The Heart in America, and it was translated by a different person. And this takes place over 24 hours following a tragic accident of a young man, and he's been declared legally dead even though he's in a coma. He has no brain functionality, and he's just surviving. And it follows a whole lot of different people involved in the situation, from his parents, the boy, the doctors, and it explores the way we look at donors and the way we look at transplants, and looking at the way that we can give life to others even after we cease to be alive. And it's a really interesting exploration into the idea of donating your organs and how you can mend the living and save lives just by becoming a donor. And I think this is a fantastic and interesting book. I did have a little bit of issues with it. I feel like the book was a little too stream of conscious at times and too simplified at times. And even at other times I felt like I was getting a bit lost from jumping from person to person. But I think it was a wonderful and interesting idea to explore, and I think we need to take our time to think about these kind of ideas more often. And this is an interesting way to talk about this book. This was actually longlisted for the Man Booker International Prize, and I can understand why it wasn't shortlisted. I think it's an important topic, but I wouldn't say it's the best writing. But this book has stuck with me since reading it, and I can't help not thinking about it. I think for people that are interested in learning a bit more about deaf industry, this is a nice addition, even though it is fiction, to think about the idea of donating your organs and thinking about the emotions that happen with everyone involved in this whole ordeal. And because it's crammed in 24 hours, you feel all the emotions that your parents go through and the ideas that flow through their head about giving their organs away and the transplant and how the stress they have, the doctors may have to go through, and the gratefulness that the recipient of the organ has. And there's so many emotions happening, and it really explores this in a really interesting way. And I wish I liked the writing more because I think it was such a wonderful premise. And I'd like to recommend this book because I think it's something we need to think about more. And this is a French novel, and I've seen this going around a bit on BookTube, so I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing more people do reviews on this book, because I've seen this book on TBRs, but I haven't actually seen any reviews of this book, which is a little sad. The last book that I actually want to talk about is the third book in the Neapolitan series, and that is Those Who Leave and Those Who Stay by Elena Ferrante, and this is translated by Anne Goldstein. It's really difficult to talk about this book because it is the third book in the series, but I am really loving this series. I listened to this book as an audiobook because my wife has been listening to the audiobooks for this series, and I thought since I had the audiobook, I'd listen to it instead of reading the book, which I did for the first two. And this is further on in the life of Eleanor and Lena, and exploring life after college and marriage and kids, and it's a really interesting book. I am actually surprised that Lena kind of took a backseat in the book, and it really focused on Eleanor and what was happening with her. And I don't want to give too much away because I feel like this is a book that is really a slow burn character development, and you follow these characters throughout all the books, and we follow their ups and downs. And I love the way Elena Ferrante has written these characters because they're so well developed, they're so destructive and so intriguing. What I really love about these books is the way that you start to know these characters and you think you understand the characters, and yet they still do things that surprise you, they still do things that you don't expect, and you really get involved with their mistakes and their lives because you've spent so much time with these characters. And while it is a slow burn, it's such a joy to follow the lives of these characters, and I can't wait to get to the fourth book. It's interesting, the first two books ended on a cliffhanger that really sucks you into the next book, and they're really weird cliffhangers, but you need to know what happens, so you read the next book. But the third book doesn't really have that kind of cliffhanger. You hit a spot and it just ends. You'd like to know what happens, but it's not a cliffhanger. And I think that's really interesting because I know the fourth book came out a lot later than the first three, and I don't even know if the fourth book was ever planned. But I am looking forward to picking up the last book in this series because I've enjoyed these people's lives so much. And I had to talk about this book, and I couldn't do a full review because it is the third book in a series, and I have no idea how people review books in series because you don't want to spoil any of the first two books, but there's so much you want to talk about. And I think this is one of the best series I've read in a long time, and I'm just loving being with these characters. So that's it for my first mini review. Let me know what you think of the mini review and what you think of the books I've talked about, and I'd love to talk to you more in the comments below. If you want to find me elsewhere, all my links to social media are in the description below. And as always, thank you for watching.